Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now this bit is for the parents, guardians and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.
So good morning and welcome to this Careers Enterprise Company webinar on Gatsby Benchmark 4. Now today's masterclass introduces a new modelling matrix which has been developed as a guide and mapping tool to help career leaders evolve their approach to delivering careers in the curriculum. Now this masterclass includes an overview of the matrix and some examples of good practice from across the network to support career leaders in maintaining the profile of careers throughout 2021 and beyond. Delighted to be joined by a very familiar face today. Good morning, Marie. Hi, Marie.
Morning, everyone.
So Marie Jobson is the Area Education Manager at the Careers Enterprise Company. Hope I've got that right, Marie. And we'll be going through the matrix with us and also answering any questions you may have throughout the session. Now remember, if you have any questions throughout the next hour, please use the live chat next to the video player and we will answer those questions for you in the Q&A session as we go along. So there's plenty of opportunities to leave questions after each of these presentations that Marie is going to go through. So Marie, I'm going to hand over to you briefly just to give us a bit of context about what we're going to be covering today. Thank you.
Hi, it's lovely to see everyone this morning. It's brilliant to see people from far and wide logging in. Obviously, you can see from the map behind me, that's the map of North Tyneside. It's brilliant to be joined by colleagues who can literally place themselves on the map. So, but welcome to everybody. The session today follows on directly from the Benchmark 1 webinars that we did earlier in lockdown. So there is a real natural kind of flow, although we've jumped from Benchmark 1 to Benchmark 4. And as Stuart says, please keep all comments, questions, observations coming in the chat. We've got our fantastic colleagues, Rachel, Kelly and Andrew from Education and Barbara from Events with us today. And we're ready just to engage around the session today. So really excited.
Thanks very much, Marie. And just a couple of housekeeping rules to observe. If people could now just sign in on the chat, just to know we can see you, hear you, and that tell us where you are in the world. So your name of your school or your job title and where you are in the country. So I can see a few people here. Claire from William Allett in South Derbyshire. Hello, Claire. And also we've got Kath Irwin from Mark Rutherford in Bedford. Hello, Kath. Thank you for joining us this morning. And loads of people saying good morning as well on the chat. So if you could just sign in on the live chat, it'd be good to know that you're with us today. Got quite a group of people on already online. The only thing I would ask you to not do is please don't put your email address in the live chat due to GDPR compliance. We won't be able to approve your question. So you can always message the Careers Enterprise Company separately and there'll be information going up on the live chat on how you can do just that. I think you've got an email address, haven't you, Marie, that you can share, or Kelly and Rachel can share, where people can email directly any questions, feedback to that email address. So please don't put your email address up today. The only people who can will be the Careers Enterprise Company people with that particular address. Thank you so much for those people who are now signing in. It's great to see so many of you online this morning. And as Marie said, this is your chance to ask the experts. So please use the live chat to get your questions to Marie and the team who are waiting to answer your questions. And there's the address that you can send your inquiries straight to. That's education@careersenterprise.co.uk. Thank you, Tim. Good to see you coming in from, I always get this wrong, I think it's Van Deen School in Brighton. And then we've got Simon. Highcliffe School as well in Dorset. Loads of them there, Marie. You can read through those, as your team will as well, as we go through this. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Marie, if I could, is to now go to the first part of this broadcast, where you're going to be introducing this Gatsby Benchmark 4, and how this can assist with developing an approach to careers in the curriculum. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you. There are significant challenges around Benchmark 4 and careers across the curriculum. So there is pressure around time and curriculum delivery, pressures around a vulnerable labour market, and the acute need to ensure that students are confident, empowered and supported to make positive transitions at 16 and 18. But with every set of challenges comes opportunity, and we currently have a golden opportunity to embed careers through the curriculum. So we should grab this with both hands and focus our support on implementing approaches to truly embed careers across the curriculum as a legacy of this time of challenge and as a legacy of the opportunity presented to us. Where careers is embedded across the curriculum, there is stronger messaging and a stronger profile for careers, and there is an efficiency in terms of covering key learning outcomes for careers. We can also use this opportunity to really engage or re-engage with SLT and governors to highlight how careers is part of the solution to addressing school and college priorities. The approaches that we'll consider today really enable an entitlement for each and every student in order to support raising aspiration and ensuring there's a clear purpose and rationale for learning. So the use of the word entitlement is critical and really deliberate in terms of moving away from an opportunity towards a universal approach for each and every student in your schools and colleges. Now more than ever, making careers relevant to students is absolutely critical to young people making positive life choices. And in addition to making careers relevant, it's really important that we make teaching and learning relevant in terms of supporting those positive life choices as well. So that's where that really exciting and golden opportunity comes from, to really ensure that legacy of Benchmark 4 from the challenge we're currently facing to where careers can be intrinsically linked to strategic objectives and a clear career learning outcomes that support strategic objectives, support vision for schools and colleges, and also really crucially support positive outcomes for students. So the ultimate starting point for what we're looking at today is a strategic careers plan and subsequent progressive learning outcomes which underpin a careers programme to support strategic priorities and vision, which, as I say, really supports and facilitates positive outcomes for students. These are the objectives for today's session, and just take a moment to reflect on these and to consider these. So the session today will give an overview of approaches to embedding Benchmark 4 that will allow for consistency and a universal entitlement that will support student outcomes and school-college priorities. We will explore how you can use resources that accompany this session to truly embed careers across the curriculum. And the main objective is to make sure that what we don't do is overcomplicate this benchmark. It is my favourite of all the benchmarks, and in the approaches that we'll look at today, we'll hopefully clarify and simplify steps that require a methodical and tenacious approach to embedding careers across the curriculum without anything massively revolutionary. So what we're going to consider today is a careers in the curriculum mapping tool, and that's shared with you. If you haven't accessed that already, there's a link to that in the chat. What this tool does and why we've created it is to really maximise the opportunity that Benchmark 4 presents to us now in our current context. And it does three things. It highlights three distinct approaches which have been developed around practice that's already developing in schools and colleges across our network, and from conversations with career hub leads who are really driving careers in the curriculum models. The resources which are available from our new resource directory also include all supporting tools you need to implement these approaches and to really embed careers across the curriculum. So that includes definitions of the approaches, breakdowns of each approaches, audit documents and checklists to support progress. There's also links to resources that support staff CPD and SLT and governor engagement. So what are the approaches? The starting point is the foundation approach. This directly evolves from benchmark 1, and it involves you really starting with ensuring that you have got progressive learning outcomes which derive and support a strategic careers plan. The other two approaches, careers across the curriculum and employer-enriched careers across the curriculum, start to think about mobilising teaching staff and employers to truly embed careers across the curriculum by incorporating curriculum learning outcomes with career learning outcomes, with planned intent to explicitly support student outcomes and school and college priorities, while also engaging students in teaching and learning, thus positively impacting on attainment and progress. Each approach can be implemented concurrently. The approaches are not either or, but it is really important that we stress at this point that as a minimum, careers leaders should be aiming to implement the foundation model before even thinking about the other ones. And it's possible that even the more experienced career leaders among us may need to really kind of think and reflect today on that foundation level. As a careers leader myself, I was a career leader in a school in the Northeast for over 7 years. I need to kind of reflect and be honest at this point that I dabbled across all 3 approaches in my school. And in the thinking that we've done on this, I can see clearly that my focus should have really been on truly getting to grips with the foundation approach before considering good practice on implementing the other 2 approaches. You also have to keep the foundation approach ticking over while you consider the other approaches. And I didn't always do that. And that meant 2 things. One, opportunities were missed to maximise work with employers and maximise time that I had with curriculum leads. But fundamentally, students fell through the net in terms of that each and every. So achieving the foundation level consistently for each and every student does require significant commitment, yet it will yield a positive impact for young people and all young people in your schools and colleges. So the ultimate starting point, as I said, is what we're looking at today is that you've got a strategic careers plan. And from that careers plan, you've got a subsequent progressive learning outcomes from which underpin your careers programme that support strategic priorities and vision, and which most importantly lead to positive outcomes for students. So this is a recap on some of the thinking that was covered in the Benchmark 1 workshops where we looked at the CDI framework. This framework kind of really handily articulates already careers, employability and enterprise education learning outcomes for learners from Key Stage 2 to 16 to 19 cohorts. So we considered in the Benchmark 1 workshop how learning outcomes provide a clear definition of careers for your particular school and college, thus allowing staff to absolutely recognise what do you mean by careers? What is the specific expectation of them in terms of embedding careers into their curriculum? This is an example of a worked example, if you like, of how learning outcomes can be used to enable strategic objectives. So if we consider this example of a strategic objective, and the strategic objective being ensure that all students make effective and ambitious decisions about the full range of options available to them at key transition points. What's needed there are learning outcomes that would be stepping stones for this objective. So for example, in Key Stage 3, what you might support learners to do is know how to identify and systematically explore options open to them at a decision point. At Key Stage 4, you would build on that and say that learners should be able to research education, training, apprenticeship, employment and volunteering options including information about the best progression pathways through to specific goals. So the learning outcome are really, they're quite subtly different, and one builds on the other, but both together provide those stepping stones towards that really important strategic objective that students are making effective and ambitious decisions. So once learning outcomes are defined, then a careers leader can start to consider the best vehicle for those, including using Benchmark 4 and mobilising teaching staff. So how can teaching staff be mobilised to incorporate those key learning outcomes within their teaching? So before we consider those approaches in more detail, let's pause here, each of the approaches in more detail. Sorry, let's pause here for any observations or questions.
Thank you for that, Marie. Quick overview of this particular Benchmark 4 and the modelling tools, Marie, and what those three approaches cover. I'm looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts that have come through on the chat so far. I had plenty of hellos from people, so thank you so much for getting in touch. If you haven't done that already, use the chat facility now just to let us know where you're coming in from. So your name of your school, the location. It'd be great to see where you are. If you've not signed into the live chat, please do so now. I know a few people jumped on while you were chatting there, Marie, so they may not have done that, so I'm sure they will. And thanks as well to your colleagues. We've got Rachel, we've got Kelly. I think Andrew may be there as well, is he?
Andrew, yeah.
Yeah, taking some of the questions too and providing some really useful links. So thank you to Kelly, Rachel and Andrew for doing that. I don't know if you had anything. I think Claire had a question there. I don't know if there's anything you want to pick up on, Marie, from what came in while you were doing the presentation.
I think just my reflection is that first bit is just really kind of teasing out from Benchmark 1. It would be really interesting for people to comment kind of how they use learning outcomes. But I think if there aren't questions at this point, we'll get stuck into the detail of the approach. But please, if there are questions, keep them coming through. But we just wanted to kind of cover off that move from Benchmark 1, how it flows seamlessly into Benchmark 4.
Perfect. And I'm going to remind people each time we do a link between the presentations. And just first off, thank you, Debbie from Poole High School in Dorset. And obviously, we've also just had in there Angela from King Edward VI in Suffolk. Nice for you to join us today. Just a reminder to use the live chat to ask questions to the team during Marie's presentation and afterwards as well. Keep those coming in. And also, please refrain from putting your own personal email addresses into the chat because we won't be able to approve them due to GDPR compliance. So if you could just avoid leaving your details in. If you do want to get in touch with the Careers Enterprise Company, there is an email address which I'm sure Kelly or Rachel will put up to remind you of where to contact them on. Okay. All right, Marie, thank you for that. I'm going to pass you then to go through the second part of your presentation, and where you're going to be telling us about the three approaches in further detail, starting with the foundation approach. So I'm going to pass over to you now. Thank you very much, Marie.
Thank you. So now we've kind of done a recap on the learning outcomes that form a progressive careers programme. Let's start to really consider each of the approaches that we're talking about today in more detail. The starting point is the foundation approach. And it really is a foundation that has to be sustained as a basis for any other approach that might follow. So the key features of this approach are that there is a progressive careers programme designed by the career leader, delivered primarily in time dedicated for careers learning. In this approach as well, curriculum staff highlight the relevance of their subject to careers. So the relationship between subjects, future jobs and skills is clearly outlined, and students are supported to understand potential pathways from each subject. And if we just pause there for a minute and think about how powerful this could be as an entitlement for each student in each subject area as they move through your schools and colleges, that they're hearing that message constantly about the relevance of their subjects to careers. That is a powerful entitlement for students. But what we recognise is that within this programme approach, the accountability for the programme, delivery of learning outcomes sits with the career leader. And there's a risk for that at the moment, because if the planning, delivery of careers lessons or discrete time is done by the career leader at that moment, that's the time that might be squeezed currently in timetables and curriculum at the moment. There is significant time and resource commitment required from career leaders in this approach to make sure that all activity is tracked and recorded, to make sure there is a confident entitlement for each and every student, that that's happening across each subject. And as I said before, when I reflected on my practice, the crux of this approach is that if we're not getting this foundation approach truly embedded, then young people are falling through the net. So, you know, they're not hearing how the relevance of all subjects to careers, and potentially then learning outcomes are not being delivered and outcomes will be negatively impacted. If there's not that absolute intent and not those stepping stones being covered, how will we ever get to strategic objectives being met? When we were working on this as an organisation with colleagues, I really felt that the foundation approach was, to use the analogy of baking, was our key ingredients. And this is the key approach as a foundation for embedding careers across the curriculum. I'm going to pause at this point to take any questions on the foundation approach, and here in the chat, reflections on how you do meet the foundation approach, how you make sure that there are progressive learning outcomes delivered towards strategic objectives, but also how you ensure that all curriculum staff highlight the relevance of their subject. Thinking about what actions you might have to take at this point to ensure that you've either got clearly defined progressive learning outcomes, or to ensure that all staff are highlighting the relevance of their subject. So I'm interested, how universal or established is this for you at this point?
Thank you, Marie, for going into those key features of the foundation approach and what this can actually do to the careers of the curriculum department. I'm sure a few people have taken a lot from that, so let's have a look at the live chat. And obviously this is your chance to ask Marie and the team at CEC any questions relating to this particular benchmark. Marie, is anything that you want to reflect on from that part of the foundation approach itself?
I think, you know, what I've kind of stressed around that foundation approach is its kind of beautiful simplicity, if you like. And the real crucial element to this is around that sense of entitlement for each and every, and just really getting the basics right. So what I'm really kind of looking forward to is seeing just how you approach that. What was brilliant about the masterclasses last time was the good practice that was shared in the chat. So any ideas, any plenaries, starters that you've kind of developed for colleagues to use around helping them to highlight the relevance of their subject would be really, really welcomed. So please do use the chat for that, as well as for any questions as we go through.
Thank you, Marie. Yeah, I just want to stress that really. We had some great advice from schools who developed some of these benchmarks already to share with others. So please help others. This is your chance to help each other as well in this session and provide people with best practice. So thank you for that. So shall we crack on? We've got quite a few parts of this to get through today. So Marie, I'm going to pass you over to the third part of this presentation, where you're now going through the next approach. This is being the careers across the curriculum approach. Thanks, Marie.
So if the first approach was the ingredients, this approach is very much the cake. And the next approach that we're going to consider is the careers across the curriculum approach. The key features of this approach are that a progressive careers programme exists. However, subject teachers clearly understand and are mobilised to deliver with intent career learning outcomes. So this is an elevation from the foundation model. So where a career leader would really start to engage subject colleagues in supporting with the delivery of career learning outcomes in curriculum time. So start to move career learning outcomes from being delivered in discrete time for learning which is vulnerable in the current model, towards embedding it in the current situation, but towards embedding it in curriculum time. We recognise that in this approach, subject teachers may also be working independently off their own bat with employers to deliver curriculum learning outcomes with reference to the world of work. And there may be potential in examples that you've got of this, for this work to just be enhanced and refined by incorporating the delivery of career learning outcomes within this work. So just by kind of tweaking the brief for employers and by raising the awareness of curriculum staff of what your learning outcomes are, specifically by key stage, there's potential to really enhance and enrich that work and really maximise that opportunity where subject teachers are already engaging with employers themselves. Employers may be present or could be involved virtually currently, although this is not a prerequisite of Benchmark 4. So this is the ultimate approach for Benchmark 4 before we start to veer into Benchmark 5 and 6 territory. This is the cake. This is where we want to get to. I've been very deliberate in not presenting these approaches as a pyramid because the next approach that we get to is not ultimately where we want to get to in terms of embedding Benchmark 4. It's this approach. So in achieving this, this would mean that careers is truly embedded across the school or college. And the key element being teaching staff are mobilised, empowered and confident to deliver career learning outcomes in tandem with their own teaching points. So going beyond that foundation approach of them simply highlighting the relevance of their subject, potentially in a way that's disconnected from curriculum learning. This is much more nuanced, much more strategic and kind of threads through teaching. And this means that the accountability and responsibility for careers starts to shift from being the sole focus of the career leader to all staff. This requires CPD, strategic enablement and empowerment of careers in schools and colleges, and we will consider the different steps for each approach, including these within this session. So to put this into context and to give an example of a possible learning outcome for Key Stage 4 in our current situation, it could be that to support positive destinations for current year 11s in your schools, that the career leader sets a learning outcome that all students will understand opportunities in the local labour market. This would mean a really clear focus and brief for any work that staff do when they're highlighting the relevance of their subject to careers, and gives a really clear brief to employers who are involved at any point, and that this is part of their brief, that you really want to make sure that each and every young person understands. So it moves away from a scattergun approach where there's opportunity for students to find out about the local labour market, where we're moving towards it becoming an entitlement, and that that we're confident that each and every young person understands the opportunities in the local labour market. I'm going to pause here for any questions or observations on the careers across the curriculum approach.
Thank you, Marie, for going through those key features. Just before we ask you a question relating to that, I just got an announcement for any career leader watching in a school. Obviously, last time you joined us was during the summer when probably you were working from home to make it easier. Now, you may find you've got an issue with joining the live chat on your screen. If that is the case, it is a quick fix with the IT department at your school. Just simply ask them to add Learn Live to the whitelist. They'll know what that means. So if you could ask your IT department to add this channel to their whitelist, then you won't have any further problems following that happening, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy getting involved with the live chat for the next one we do next month with Marie. So thank you for that. If you need any more clarification for that, please put your problems you're having, just email us using the email us option at the top of this page. You'll see there's an email section. Please get in touch and we will help you where we can to make that work for you. So Marie, I've got a question for you based on what you've just gone through there. Do you believe that it's important for the subject teacher themselves to be already working closely with employers with reference to the world of work for Benchmark 4?
I think it's a really interesting question. one of the things that I was really keen to stress around this, I find the careers in the curriculum is the most exciting in terms of the potential impact. When we think about employers, the crucial bit is when you said working with employers rather than actual employers delivering necessarily. So it's not absolutely essential when we're thinking about that entitlement for each and every student. It's not essential that an employer is in front of for benchmark 4 each and every class, each and every subject, but that engagement with employers to help teachers bring their teaching to life is absolutely crucial. And the bit that I really kind of wanted to stress is, it's a phrase that I use, I'll probably use it again, but it's about helping staff not feel like they have to boil the ocean. I think it's quite overwhelming when careers leaders, I remember in my experience about saying you have to put careers in the curriculum, and learning outcomes help kind of really boil it down almost into kind of layperson speak, if you like. It helps staff to recognise, well, what do you mean by careers? And it just really gives it that focus. So I mean, some of the comments coming through are fantastic. But to Claire's point, she said some staff really take it on board and seamlessly bring it into lessons. The crucial word for me in that sentence is it. What is it? Because there's something that's kind of resonated with staff about what careers is, careers being the it. And I think it's just helping staff really identify what is it and how can we really define what careers means and make staff feel a lot more at ease. Sometimes when they see a learning outcome, it's like this light bulb moment. They're like, that's careers, right, okay. But working with employers to develop resources, I think is absolutely crucial. But it's about what can be delivered at pace within curriculum time, within kind of timetabled lessons at the minute. I think that's what's crucial.
Thank you, Marie. Is there any other observations from, I know you picked up on a couple of things and there's a few things that have come in about audits. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, it's a great question about audit. The tool does come with some audits again, so it helps staff to kind of recognise what do we mean by careers so that they can tell you and you can celebrate and record where careers is already happening. So there are some audit tools for you to consider with the approaches. And there's a really interesting question about employers. What we're seeing as an organisation is that employers are still really keen to lean in for many different reasons. But I think in the can-do guide that's come out, we really see that and feel that sense as an organisation that employers, even though they can't necessarily come in face-to-face with young people, there is that commitment still to either working with staff, upskilling staff, helping that co-creation of resource, potentially videos that might bring a teaching point to life. Employers are still willing to give the time and expertise. We're certainly not seeing that on a national or regional scale. That's an issue. We're just working differently. That's all.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Marie. I'm just going to remind people again, if you just joined us, to use the live chat to sign in. Let us know where you're coming in from, which school, and say hello to your fellow career leaders and enterprise coordinators who've joined us for this live chat with Marie, going through Gatsby Benchmark 4. Thank you for all your hellos.
I'm putting my hand up like I'm at school.
Have you got a question, Marie?
No, I really want to highlight what Jackie said. I think that's absolutely the key, is just being really explicit to staff within their schemes of work to help them recognise that they do already deliver quite a lot of careers, and it's just helping them be explicit. And when they recognise, more learning outcomes and start to recognise that when it's done with intent, when the career leader can share, this is the priority for this year group within a progressive career programme, when they can see the benefits, what's excellent is when staff then start to come to you, when it's shared across staff networks about how involving employers or putting learning in the context of the world of work more explicitly and with a bit more intent. I think it's brilliant when it starts to kind of snowball and fuel itself, if you like. So yeah, But I love Jackie's point. I think it's really really crucial.
Yeah, and that conversation seems to be bubbling now, so it's great to see that. And so I'm sure we'll cover that off after this next part of your broadcast, Marie. Well, thank you for answering those questions, and also thank you to your team. We've got Rachel, Kelly, and Andrew, I think, chipping in there from the CEC HQ. Or wherever they are in the current climate. Thank you so much for your support today, and keep those links coming up. If I could ask one of them to put the link to the... Oh, you've just done it actually, Rachel. You took the words out of my mouth. Thank you. education@careersandenterprise.co.uk. That's the place to email. If you have any questions about today or any ideas, please get in touch at that email address. Don't put your email address on your own chat question, because we won't be able to publish it due to GDPR, but you're more than welcome to publish to that or post to that education@careersandenterprise.co.uk. And also I'm sure Rachel will also let us know where recording of this broadcast will also sit, in case you missed it from the beginning or you miss it altogether. You'll be able to watch it back at the CEC website as well. So talking about employers, I'm going to ask Marie to now cover the fourth part of your presentation, where you'll be showing us really about employer-enriched careers across the curriculum. So very timely. Thanks, Marie.
So in our baking analogy, I've referred to this approach as being the cherry on the cake. This is a cherry on the cake which can distract and risks not being truly effective without the foundation approach and the careers across the curriculum approach. And I very much say this from experience. So remember, this is not a progressive model. We're not aiming to get to this point for all students. We're aiming to get to careers across the curriculum for all students, so that careers learning outcomes are delivered seamlessly through all subjects with a progressive careers programme. So the key features of this approach are the same as careers across the curriculum, yet in this approach, curriculum learning and career learning outcomes are still delivered, but through meaningful employer encounters and or experiences of work which are often project-based and very much sit within the realm of benchmarks 5 and 6. So just want to kind of consider what that means, because the interesting element to this approach is around the employer engagement and time allocation. So there's nothing to say that there is not employer engagement in either foundation approach or careers across the curriculum. The key difference for this approach is that it very definitely moves from benchmark 4 into benchmark 5 and 6. So that means that to be meaningful, it should have career and curriculum learning outcomes within the meaningful encounters framework, and that often involves moving outside of timetabled allocations due to visits, encounters, project work, etc. So you can see here why this is more of an opportunity for students, and it's not necessarily about an entitlement around benchmark 4. So we had when we worked on this with ECs, there was a really interesting comment about an 80-20 model. And from my own reflection as a careers leader, I probably spent 80% of my time on benchmark 4 for 20% of my student cohort. So I would very much embrace, get involved in this kind of approach with fabulous opportunities for young people. But I wasn't spending enough of my time on that foundation level and really making sure that actually, as an experience day in, day out, each and every young person understood the relevance of their subjects to careers and was supported to access progressive learning outcomes through the curriculum. So we've really got to kind of be cautious around the employer-enriched careers across the curriculum approach in terms of, is it definitely an entitlement? And there is obviously a risk at the moment around some of these activities where we're moving into benchmark 5 and 6 due to pressures on timetabling and curriculum at the moment. So there we have it. Those are the 3 approaches that we want to consider in terms of embedding careers across the curriculum. Before we move on to supporting resources and stepped approach towards each one of these, let's pause again briefly just for any observations and questions.
Thank you for that, Marie. I'm sure a lot of people will have found this approach very interesting and something to seriously think about when including employers. Now, we've had some more observations and more links sent from your team as well. So is there anything you just wanted to pick up on that particular section?
I think it's interesting when we've kind of done the resources and things for this, we're very deliberately haven't done this almost like a pyramid, if you like, where what we're advocating for Benchmark 4, the real focus is predominantly on the foundation and the careers across the curriculum. And what I think the main kind of point of stress in this thinking is that until that foundation and enhancement is there for each and every young person as they move through your school or college, until that's in place, we're kind of saying just be cautious around that kind of that last approach, the employer enriched, because really we're just thinking about that each and every young person and what they hear, what they know, understand, able to do through their curriculum before we kind of really get stuck into employer projects, etc., which sometimes aren't possible across a full cohort or aren't possible within dedicated teaching time. So they kind of involve sometimes some disruption. So I mean, there are some amazing examples of project work. We'll have a look in the examples coming up later on. And as a career leader, you know, I certainly was involved in projects that were really, really transformative. But what I'm conscious of is that that was for quite a small group, and it wasn't even, some of the projects I was involved with didn't even span a whole department. So there were some students taking that subject who got a different deal to students who were in a different class in the same subject, depending on the teacher. So really it's about kind of just really making sure that the foundation approach and the careers across the curriculum is in place before really embracing that cherry on the cake, if you like. And I'm interested, you know, if just kind of how people feel about that and any observations or thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. Also, thank you for answering those questions and really reflecting on what we've got coming up. We've got some fantastic presentation now on supporting resources. So I think this is going to be quite interesting for a lot of people, include those important 9 steps as well that you mentioned. So we're going to invite you to do that. Before I do, just a reminder, if you are just joined us, to sign into the live chat if you haven't done already. Just let us know where you're coming in from, the name of your school. That would be brilliant. And also, please don't put your email address in to your questions or responses, because we will not be able to publish them, but you'll be able to get in touch to education at the Careers Enterprise Company's web address there, so you'll be able to get in touch that way instead. Okay, Marie,
I'm going to just address 2 questions quickly, Stuart,
yes, of
before
course.
I start with the next section. Sorry. I think Michelle's asked a really good question about the foundation approach below Year 7, particularly in defining careers. Absolutely. So the CDI framework includes Key Stage 2. So I would really advocate that anybody working with a careers TLR or anything in primary or middle school, you know, should kind of be thinking about what do they think young people should know, understand, be able to do. So in terms of the foundation approach, the careers programme, absolutely, it's relevant for Key Stage 2. And, you know, about highlighting the relevance of subjects potentially is a bit more straightforward in primary. And please do watch this space for our primary platform, which is, you know, heading your way soon with resources to help staff do that. And to Sharon's question, the audit tools, they're similar to the audit tools. The CDI have got their own audit tools. They've just been slightly tweaked for this modelling, but they are certainly something that can be shared with staff to help them recognise and identify where they're covering those elements of careers that they might not have previously recognised as such. And I love the quick wins about then helping schools to badge it, if you like, or brand careers. So thank you for colleagues who are sharing those ideas. But the audit tool should help with that, Sharon, that are in the tool.
Yeah, I know Andrew's just put as well a link to the CDI, which helps people there, to the careers framework, which thank you for doing that, Andrew. And
colleagues are already answering.
yeah,
Sorry, I should.
no, it's fine. It's don't worry about it. I mean, it's good to have it. You would not be able to read that link out, would you? Really, as well as Andrew can put it in the chat. So, thank you, Andrew, and also Primary Platform launching on the 8th of October. I know we haven't mentioned it yet, actually, but you've got your resources directory as well, which went live very recently. Worth getting on that for sure, because you all those great resources you can tap into. So that's available.
Yeah.
I think Rachel may have put the link up already, but ask her to do that again so you can find that directory, which is very useful. Okay, Marie, if there's nothing else coming through at the moment, I'm going to invite you then to do the 5th part, which is obviously about the supporting resources, and include those important 9 steps that people can take. Thank you.
Each of the approaches that we've got have the same 9 steps and have their own considerations and actions, if you like, around these 9 steps. And what I'll go through today are the tools and resources that will support you to embed each of the approaches, obviously starting with the foundation. But the 9 steps that we think about are these. Firstly, how do we help make careers relevant and accessible? What we don't want to do is to ask staff to boil the ocean. We need to be really clear about specifically what does careers mean in your school and colleges, and specifically what elements of careers are you wanting them to incorporate into their teaching and learning. So this is the backbone. How do we firstly identify learning outcomes for careers? How do they relate to strategic priorities and student outcomes? And how do we help staff to understand exactly what we mean at each point about careers, how they can incorporate it into curriculum, staff can incorporate it into their teaching and learning to their advantage as well. Really crucial that we consider auditing when we think about each of the approaches as well. How can we really identify where career learning outcomes are being delivered organically already within teaching and learning? So once we've highlighted to curriculum staff what we mean by careers, by sharing learning outcomes, staff will recognise where they already deliver those. And it might just be about making things a little bit more explicit, or it might help you actually really clearly address any gaps in coverage of key learning outcomes. Engaging SLT and governors requires a different level of this for each approach. And what we cover for each approach is the level of engagement necessary, and it's really crucial to say that for the foundation approach, that core approach, the level of SLT and governor engagement does not have to be significant. We also think about tracking and recording, and really this is crucial. And it's really where we would advocate that careers leaders really focus their attention at student level. It's about ensuring that there is an entitlement and coverage for each and every student, with a particular focus at the moment on who vulnerable groups are in schools and colleges, with an acknowledgement that those groups might have shifted due to COVID. The measuring impact really is supported by and is intrinsically linked to step 1. So in step 1, you specify what you are measuring for each key stage. You're identifying what do you need students to know, understand, and be able to do as a stepping stone to positive student outcomes and strategic school and college priorities. So that impact needs to flow from, do students know, understand, are they able to do what you've kind of set out in those learning outcomes? There's also an opportunity to start to have a look at potential impact on other outcomes, for example, progress, behaviour, attendance, etc. I'm fully cognizant that that is obviously affected by many other things, but there is an opportunity to look for positive patterns in this as well. CPD obviously again looks really different across the 3 approaches. So in the careers across the curriculum, CPD will be much more intense, because what you're aiming to do is to mobilise staff, and that's where we're starting to shift that accountability so that staff recognise and understand your learning outcomes and feel confident and feel bought in to weave them through their teaching. CPD would be a much lighter touch in the foundation approach. Resources are absolutely linked. So each approach has different requirements around resources, and again is informed by CPD in terms of what is expected of careers leaders and or subject staff. What we're really trying to do as an organisation is map and tag resources by career learning outcomes, as well as by curriculum learning outcomes, to really help careers leaders and curriculum staff identify resources that they can just pick up and use a lot more easily. Time is obviously about being realistic and being creative about what is possible within the curriculum and within timetabling processes. The beauty of careers across the curriculum is that pressure should be taken away from delivery in discrete time, drop-down days, careers lessons, assemblies, all those things that might have been squeezed out, because the aim is for careers learning outcomes to be delivered at pace within curriculum teaching time woven through curriculum teaching. The final consideration or step is around employer engagement, and it's a consideration for all approaches. And what's really crucial again is that benchmark 4 in of itself does not depend on the presence of employers. So the foundation approach means that there's a progressive programme delivered for careers, and all staff are highlighting the relevance of their subject to careers. Careers across the curriculum means that curriculum learning is enhanced and enriched by the incorporation of career learning outcomes. Employer enriched approach is the cherry on the cake. So the priority for benchmark 4 is that it's an entitlement embedded from the foundation approach for each and every student. And anything beyond that does start to stray into benchmark 5 and 6, which comes with its own entitlement, but it really falls under best practice for those benchmarks. So each approach does have an overview matrix with suggested actions for each of the steps that I've just gone through, and there is also a checklist for each of the approaches to support progress, just to kind of take you through each approach and really stepped around how each approach is embedded. And those resources are available. There's a link in the chat, but also in the resource directory. So just a review. There is a definition for each action in the approaches, the checklist, but out of the 9 steps for each approach, what we really want to focus on are the 3 critical steps. Make careers relevant. As a career leader, define your key progressive learning outcomes for each key stage. What do you want and need students to know, understand, be able to do to enable positive student outcomes and to really be part of the solution, if you like, around school and college priorities. So it's about really clear intent and stepping stones towards that. Audit is absolutely essential to make sure that careers leaders are aware of all the activity that's already been delivered organically, so you can recognise and celebrate that, and not then go and reinvent the wheel somewhere else if it's already been covered, particularly in core subjects like maths, science and English. So it's really then looking at a gap analysis to work towards universal implementation with intent. And crucially, you must record. So auditing must be followed up with recording in Compass, Compass Plus, although I do recognise that lots of careers leaders separately record against learning outcomes. And if you wish to look at that as a way to support Compass Plus completions or Compass completions, there are tools to start to record that in the resource pack. So I really want to think about what it means in terms of focus and actions for you for foundation approach. So a primary task for career leaders to really be confident that you've got learning outcomes that are the stepping stones towards planned impact for students, and that will meet any strategic objectives. In the foundation approach, the only expectation of curriculum staff is that they will all highlight the relevance of their subject to careers and make links to skills and opportunities. There's no suggestion in the foundation approach that they need to go into teaching. That can be done through homework, through starters, through plenaries, etc., as a foundation. So it's really about a tenacious, methodical approach that is necessary in terms of supporting all staff to do this and to ensure that auditing and recording takes place to entitle each and every student. Before we have a look at some examples of practice, let's pause again for comment and reflection.
Thank you for that, Marie. It's incredibly interesting to see those 9 steps with regards to these approaches and how they come together in the form of the checklist you've mentioned in your presentation. I just remind people that remember, if you've got any useful resources, put them in the live chat and you'll be able to go to them after this presentation. So I'm just going to ask Rachel and Kelly to again remind people where they are if they haven't already done that. Maria, I think you've picked up on one question during that session. Have you anything else, or do you want to just tackle that first one?
Yeah, it was just a question from Nina, and I'm just noticing Sarah's asking a really similar question. So in the resources guide, so it's in the modelling kind of guide, there is a link to the audit tools. So there isn't necessarily like an example, but it should be quite clear kind of what's being asked of staff. But to see kind of a worked example, if you like, in the can-do guide, there is an example of a progressive careers programme that does include examples of where learning outcomes are met through benchmark 4, through benchmark 5, 6, 7. So there is a worked example of a programme, but I'm hoping the audit tool should be easily accessible for member staff. There shouldn't be too much kind of careers jargon and things in there. But Nina, if there are any issues with it, please do, contact us via the education inbox, and we can see if we can support with that.
Thank you, Marie. Just checking to see if anything else has come in whilst we're chatting.
There's a question there about the about a recording. I think that the question really is around kind of how much of the lesson kind of needs to be. Is that right? It's Ms. D. Porter about how explicit would the recording need to be. I'm thinking that might be kind of input from an employer. It's really about kind of how clear the brief is, and as long as that teacher is really highlighting the relevance of the subject to future careers, anything else is almost just kind of supporting the career leader. So as long as the kind of learning outcomes kind of covered appropriately and kind of explored, it does kind of suggest that sometimes there needs to be kind of an overlay. So if there is a learning outcome that's really, really crucial, what I found as a careers leader, sometimes I would try and make sure if it was happening in lessons, sometimes that's just in an option subject where not every young person was in there. So I would make sure maybe it was a benchmark 5 or 6 event that it was covered for a full year group. So it's really a judgment call about kind of how confident are you that young people know, understand and are able to do that thing based on how a member of staff may or may not have covered it. I hope that makes sense.
Nina said thank you, by the way, to your previous comments. That's worked. And Ms. D. Porter said staff recording or career leader. Don't know if that actually helps you there, Marie.
Oh, is it the recording? I thought you meant a recording from an employer. Is it kind of how staff tell you what they've covered? Ah, okay. Yeah. So the audit tools, there's one that staff would fill in where they would note down kind of for Key Stage 3, 4, 5 where they cover that learning outcome. There's then an audit where the career leader can almost kind of harvest all that information and put it in. So again, it is kind of a judgment call from the career leader about kind of how confident they are, as I say, that staff have really covered it. And I think you'd get a sense of, was it just kind of a passing reference or a tenuous reference to that? So it's a bit of a judgment call for when the career leader fills in their own audit about whether that learning outcome's really been sufficiently covered in the curriculum. I hope that makes more sense. I think I understand the question now. Happy to pick it up via the email as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much, Marie, for that and answering the questions as they're coming in, doing it live as we go along. Thank you. And then we've got one final section to cover, so I'm going to ask you if I may to go over this now. The final part of your broadcast today, where you'll be showing us some really good examples of Benchmark 4 being introduced into schools and how they have helped. So I'm sure this will encourage more questions and comments. Thanks very much, Marie.
Thank you. So we're really excited that we've launched our new resource directory to help you access resources to support all benchmarks, but obviously for today for benchmark 4. So please do look at the resource directory for that. But what I want to start with is thinking about an example from Doncaster that was created by enterprise coordinators there. And what it starts to do is starts to help teaching staff to highlight the relevance of their subjects by using key events and initiatives like Women into STEM, History Weeks, etc., to start, and they call those stimuli, to start to link those stimuli, big events that schools and colleges might naturally want to promote and get students involved with, to help teachers make links to local employers and key resources and to related careers. So when we think about a career leader, thinking about that foundation approach, making sure that all staff are highlighting the relevance of their subject to career paths, the key here to implementing a tool like this would be to really think about how do we audit and record where it was actually happening beyond an offer being made to staff to seek out resource. How would a career leader really make sure that each and every young person was benefiting from that? The next approach, again, that is next example, that is available again on the resource directory, is a really good, strong example from Stoke and Staffs in collaboration from Harewood Academy and employers. This really sits within careers across the curriculum and does have potential for scalability in terms of the resources that have been developed linked to schemes of work for maths. So they're off the shelf ready for maths teachers following that exam board to pick up and deliver without the presence of employers necessarily, because what has been done is the curriculum learning has been put in the context of the world of work for maths using insight from an employer. So subject teachers themselves worked with employers to highlight the relevance of their subject to career pathways and to embed the learning within the world of work. So one thing that we would be really asking that career leader to really consider is think about how, if you know that your subject staff are working with employers to do this, is maximise that opportunity and help them understand what are your key learning outcomes for the key stages they're working with that they could potentially weave in to this. So going beyond highlighting the relevance of the subject to possibly incorporating learning outcomes on LMI, challenging stereotypes, understanding the world of work, but really specifically with those learning outcomes from the CDI framework. Similarly, there's a really good example from Great Marlow School, where again, a teacher got an embryologist to come in and deliver curriculum learning. So really putting that learning into the context of the world of work. So again, we'd be advocating that the career leader should be aware of that, to look at organically with where the planning for this session was, which other career learning outcomes could they almost check off for those students in those sessions. But where is the opportunity to enhance the brief for the employer and the curriculum teacher to incorporate career learning outcomes? So to make sure that career learning outcomes are covered where employers are already working with curriculum staff, particularly when drop-down days, assembly time, etc. is being squeezed. Again, another similar example from the Misbourne School is where in Year 9 GCSE Art, students worked with publishers to put a everyday school project into the context of the world of work, with a project that was done within teaching time. So again, it's careers across the curriculum, but it had real potential, this one, to with slight tweaks, to be to have the meaningful employer encounter and experience of work framework applied to also be counted for benchmark 5 and 6. This example really is around that employer enrich, that cherry on the cake. So it explicitly had as a Year 12 BTEC business studies project from the outset the career leader, the curriculum leader, and the employer work together to co-create the aims from the CGI framework, from the employer, what they wanted as a benefit, and crucially what the curriculum leader needed to actually assess BTEC work. So the outcomes were co-created that met everybody's needs, and a real world brief was set that allowed students to make progress against career learning outcomes and curriculum learning outcomes. So there was an element of careers across the curriculum because some of this happened in teaching time. However, there was also really exciting opportunity to bring that experience to life through visit and offsite experiences for some of the students. So that bit was that element of, it was a cherry on the cake where that was able to happen. But crucially, the bit that's important was the bit that really took place in the lesson where there was that core delivery of career and curriculum learning outcomes. The next example that I wanted to focus on is not an example of implementation. It's really a strategic commitment that from a senior leadership team. And we're starting to see this happen more and more, where colleges or school senior leadership team and head teachers are almost kind of mandating that careers must be embedded across the curriculum. What we need to be mindful of is that careers needs to be defined. So in this approach, we need to apply that foundation approach to make sure that staff are absolutely clear about the definition of careers for their school or college and for particular key stages. So in this example, there may be work happening in the foundation, careers across the curriculum, and employer-enriched learning across all of the departments. And we often hear schools saying that they're appointing careers champions in departments. So again, it's about not expecting any careers champions to boil the ocean. So when they are working with their colleagues in departments to incorporate into schemes of work, careers into schemes of work, it's really narrowing down what is meant by careers. So we would still have to think about the learning outcomes and that staff are confident with those. So let's just kind of revisit the foundation, the careers across the curriculum, and the employer-enriched, particularly when we're starting to think about how careers might be mandated or how careers might be enabled through different schools or colleges. We still need to be mindful of the different approaches, starting with the foundation approach. I love this quote. This quote actually came from the Hayward Academy, where the maths example came from. But crucially, this quote is from an English teacher in that school. So what the lesson learned there was that teachers listen to teachers, heads listen to heads. And what has happened in Stoke and Staffs is not only have other departments kind of seen the impact and the enthusiasm of staff who've seen the value of embedding their curriculum learning into a world of work context. So it has moved across the school to other departments, but crucially, it's moved across the region. So teachers in maths networks, English networks, etc., are hearing from colleagues in Stoke and Staffs themselves. So it's not the career leader driving this. Subject staff are starting to drive it, which really brings back, in terms of the career leader, the responsibility being on making sure the CPD is right, around mobilising and understanding the learning outcomes, but auditing, tracking and recording as well, particularly where staff are motivated to doing this themselves around benchmark 4 and hopefully benchmark 5 and 6 as well. So just to round off before we stop for final reflection and questions, the main resource for this session is the modelling tool guide for benchmark 4. You may also want to refresh around the benchmark 1 sessions and the associated resources for them. Recently, we've released a Careers in Context, a can-do guide about having the confidence to make decisions in the challenging times that we're currently in around COVID, so how we can use some of the challenges as opportunities. We're also, as I've referenced, really excited to announce that the resource directory, a one-stop shop for careers leaders with a huge range of resources and best practice, is also live now as well. One of the resources featured in the resource directory and in the Gatsby School Toolkit is Resource and Thinking from Forum Talent Potential. The green box is taken from the Schools Toolkit, so please don't worry if you haven't got time to note these down. But so there is an approach from Forum Talent Potential on there, very similar to careers across the curriculum, potentially without the step of the career leader really ensuring that their learning outcomes are embedded in any work with employers. So there's a wealth of free resources from Forum Talent Potential and a stepped approach to consider. There is a paid for element from this organisation. So today what we're highlighting is the free resources and how they can support you in thinking about how you might approach careers across the curriculum. There's some really good case studies, videos, and the stepped approach is freely available as well. A reminder about our free training offer. We've got a free online introduction to careers leadership models and a fully funded face-to-face offer with an extra 650 places available this year, although demand for those places is high. So as someone who did complete the career leader training face-to-face, I can truly endorse this as a transformative piece of training around what is actually possible with a strategic approach to careers in a school or college. And that's very much what we're hearing. Very, very strong feedback from the 1,300 careers leaders who've already completed that training, where 96% either agreed or strongly agreed that the training has really helped them identify action to improve their practice. And finally, if you don't already receive our updates from us as an education team in the Careers and Enterprise Company, please register your details for these for our Careers Leader newsletter and follow the link that's in the chat. And we'll stop for final questions.
Thank you so much for that, Marie. Thank you so much for showing us those real life examples of how implementing those free approaches work in the classroom or broader school. And we've had quite a lot coming through on the chat during that session. I know you've picked up on a couple of things, haven't you?
Yeah, just a quick point. I think Sarah's made a really valid point about what teachers believe they've taught versus what learners actually learn is really, really crucial around really thinking. As a career leader, you can set out, this is what I want young people to know, understand, be able to do. What we're really developing, it exists already, but it will be relaunched in January as a new version, is the Future Skills Questionnaire. And it is very much linked to Skills Builder and to the CDI framework. So it does allow you as a careers leader to actually gauge, have these learning outcomes landed. So you will be able to have some kind of entry exit. This was covered in benchmark 1, so we don't kind of advocate that the Future Skills Questionnaire is used per event, but definitely over a good chunk of time. So, from year 7 to year 11 or beginning of Key Stage 5 or post 16 and when they leave like an FE provision. So there is a way to kind of do a sense check on that. Obviously, I'm still kind of worried that I haven't quite kind of got a grasp with the question about the detail on the audit from staff. And just from my own experience, staff handled it very, very differently. I have asked staff to do this in a school, and it just takes guidance about the level of detail that you want from them, about where the learning outcomes, if it's high level or if you want detail, about where they cover those. And just to Cerise, I'm really sorry. It's kind of that some of the content is coming across as school centric. All of the learning outcomes, etc., are right up to 16 to 19 provision. So the audit tools all include Key Stage 5 and are relevant for post 16 provision as well. So apologies if it hasn't come across that way.
Thanks, Marie. And quite a few people acknowledging that. And thank you again to Rachel, Kerry and Andrew as well for getting involved in these sessions today. It's been really helpful to have the guys there sharing links. I'm just going to give people a chance to reflect on what was quite a chunky bit there of information about the examples, just to see if there's anything else that people have got. But just worth mentioning before we wrap up that we are going to be doing this again next month, actually, the 14th of October at 11 a.m. If you want to book on for that, you can. It's underneath the video player. You can see a link to it there. And obviously share that with any colleagues you may know have missed this particular broadcast. And also a recording of this will be made available in the next day or so, and that will be available on the CEC resources page as well for you to go back and watch it all over again if you missed it. I do know Marie, people found that really useful last time, and we joked that people were saving up all the 4 sessions as a kind of Netflix experience to watch them as a box set. I don't know if people ever did that, but it'd be interesting to see if anyone's caught your
there's
benchmark
just one episode.
Yes.
There's one episode in the benchmark 4. It is
yes.
just this one.
There's no box set this time, is there? No.
No.
But there was on the benchmark 1, and I think they're still available actually. If people want to revisit those benchmark 1 excellent broadcasts that you did earlier this year, they're all available again on the Careers Enterprise Company website as well. So track those down, and if the guys from CEC can just remind people where they live, that'd be really useful. I think that Rachel's just done that now, so thank you, Rachel. Good stuff. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
No, thank you, Marie, as well for your time today. Really extensive approach to Benchmark 4. And say Marie will be back on the 14th of October at 11 a.m, so save the date. And this is one of a number of broadcasts that we're doing with the CEC over the coming months. So keep an eye out in your inbox for more information about future broadcasts like this to help you as career leaders and enterprise coordinators. Marie, it's always been, as always, a pleasure. Thank you for your time today again, and we will see you on Learn Live. Keep the questions coming in. We'll leave the live chat open for the next half hour or so. Keep it going. I'm sure the team won't mind staying on. So if you've got any else you want to ask, please use the live chat and the team will get back to you. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day, Marie, and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see 2 symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned. Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. To type your question, simply click on the chat box. You will then see two symbols appear. The @ symbol will mean your comment or question will be posted publicly for others to see. The email symbol means your comment or question can be sent directly to the person of your choice from the list that will appear. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.